Somewhere right now, someone is standing in a phone store holding a device that works perfectly fine, trading it in for one that's maybe 10% faster, with a camera that takes photos almost nobody will ever print, and a screen that looks basically the same as the one they already own. And they'll walk out of that store feeling something very specific. Not relief, not satisfaction, excitement, a little rush, like they just won something. Here's the strange part. They didn't win anything. They just spent $1,000 to feel a few days of newness before it quietly wears off, and they start looking forward to next year's model. This single decision, repeated every year, for years, for millions of people, is one of the quietest ways that ordinary income turns into permanent financial stagnation. Not because phones are evil, not because upgrading is stupid, but because of what this decision represents and what it trains your brain to do with every dollar you'll ever earn. Let's talk about the upgrade trap and why it keeps so many people poor without them ever realizing it's happening. The belief that sets the trap. Most people don't think of the new phone as a financial decision. They think of it as a normal part of life. Everybody does it. Contracts make it easy. The trade-in makes it feel almost free. And besides, it's just a phone. It's not like buying a car or a house. It feels small. That feeling of smallness is exactly what makes it dangerous. Here's the common belief hiding underneath this habit. Small purchases don't really matter. What matters is the big stuff, like buying a house or saving for retirement. As long as I'm not doing anything crazy, a phone upgrade here and there isn't going to ruin my life. On the surface, that sounds reasonable. One phone isn't going to bankrupt anyone, but this belief misses something important about how wealth is actually built or destroyed. It's not usually destroyed by one massive decision. It's eroded, slowly, by a pattern of small decisions that all point in the same direction. Think of it like a leaky faucet. One drop of water means nothing. You'd never notice it. But a slow drip, running constantly, day after day, month after month, can fill entire buckets without anyone paying attention. The phone upgrade is one drop, but it's rarely just the phone. It's the pattern behind the phone that quietly drains people's financial future. Breaking down what's actually happening. Let's get concrete for a second, because numbers make psychology real. Imagine two people. We'll call them Sam and Alex. Both make the same income. Both are responsible in most areas of their life. The only difference is this one habit. Sam upgrades their phone every single year. Let's say the real cost after trade-in value, taxes, and accessories averages out to around $800 a year. That doesn't feel like a huge number, which is exactly why it survives. Alex keeps a phone for 4 years before upgrading. Same phone brand, similar price range. Over 4 years, Alex spends roughly the same $800 just once instead of 4 times. At the end of 4 years, Sam has spent around $3,200 on phones. Alex has spent $800. That's a gap of $2,400. Now here's where it gets interesting, because the real story isn't just about the money that was spent. It's about the money that never got the chance to grow. If Alex had taken that same $2,400 difference and simply invested it into something that grows over time, say earning an average return similar to long-term stock market history, that money doesn't just sit there, it compounds. It grows on itself. In 20 years, that relatively small difference could realistically grow into somewhere around $10,000 to $15,000, depending on market conditions. And if this pattern repeats every 4 years across a working lifetime, the gap becomes enormous. Not because phones are expensive, because time turns small habits into massive outcomes. This is the part almost nobody sees in the moment. When you're standing in that store, you're not comparing new phone versus old phone. You're actually choosing between new phone and a future version of yourself with more financial freedom. But that second option isn't visible. It isn't sitting on a shelf with a price tag, so your brain never even considers it as the real trade-off. Why your brain falls for this every time. Here's where the psychology comes in, because this isn't really about self-control. It's about how the human brain is wired to respond to newness, status, and immediate reward. There's a concept in psychology called hedonic adaptation. It basically means that humans get used to things very quickly. You get a new phone, and for the first few days it feels amazing. Everything about it feels fresh, sharp, exciting. But within about 2 or 3 weeks, your brain fully adjusts. The new phone becomes your new normal. The excitement fades completely, and you feel exactly as satisfied as you did with your old phone the day before you upgraded. This is the same reason a new car smell fades, a new house stops feeling exciting after a few months, and a raise at work makes you happy for a little while before your spending simply expands to match it. Your brain isn't built to stay excited about possessions. It's built to adapt and then start looking for the next source of stimulation. Companies understand this pattern extremely well. That's why new phones are released on a yearly cycle instead of every 5 years, even though the actual improvements barely justify it. They're not really selling you a better device. They're selling you that 2 or 3 week window of feeling new, timed perfectly to arrive right when the excitement from your last purchase has worn off. There's also something called social comparison at play. Humans are deeply wired to notice what others around them have. When friends, coworkers, or people online are showing off the newest model, an old feeling gets triggered. The same feeling that once helped our ancestors survive by staying accepted within a group. Falling behind visually can feel, on some subconscious level, like falling behind socially. Upgrading isn't just about the device. It's about protecting a feeling of status and belonging. And here's the part that makes this trap so effective. None of this requires you to be careless with money. Sam, in our earlier example, might be great at budgeting, might avoid credit card debt, might even have a savings account. But this one blind spot, driven by adaptation and social comparison, quietly cancels out a huge portion of their financial progress every single year. The deeper insight: it's never really about the phone. Here's the idea we need to sit with for a moment, because it changes how you look at almost every purchase you'll ever make. The phone was never really the problem. The problem is the emotional pattern the phone represents. Using a purchase to chase a feeling instead of a need. Mistaking a temporary emotional lift for genuine improvement in your life. Letting a decision that resets in 3 weeks quietly cost you years of financial growth. This same pattern shows up everywhere once you start noticing it. The clothes bought because of a feeling instead of a need. The car upgraded for status instead of function. The endless stream of small convenience purchases that all promise a tiny hit of relief or excitement. None of these individually seem dangerous. That's exactly why, together, they're so powerful. Wealthy, financially secure people are not usually wealthy because they never enjoy nice things. They're financially secure because they've learned to separate two very different questions before spending money. The first question is, will this genuinely improve my life? The second question, the one most people skip entirely, is, or am I just trying to feel something for a few days? This is really the core insight behind the entire upgrade trap. Money doesn't disappear because people make one bad decision. It disappears because people repeatedly trade long-term freedom for short-term emotional relief, without ever realizing that's the actual trade they're making. Think about it like this. Imagine your future financial freedom as a tree you're trying to grow. Every dollar you invest instead of spend on a fleeting upgrade is a bit of water and sunlight helping that tree grow taller. Every unnecessary upgrade is like walking over and snipping off a small branch before it ever gets the chance to grow. One snip doesn't kill the tree, but do it every single year for years, and you end up with something small and stunted, standing right next to someone else's tree that had the exact same starting conditions but was simply left alone to grow. That's the real cost of the upgrade trap. Not the phone, the tree that never got the chance to grow. What to actually do differently. So what does this mean practically? It doesn't mean never buying a new phone again, and it definitely doesn't mean feeling guilty every time you spend money on something you enjoy. Guilt isn't a strategy, awareness is. The first shift is learning to separate need from novelty before you buy. Before upgrading anything, not just a phone, ask yourself honestly, is my current one actually failing to do what I need, or am I just craving that new feeling? If it's genuinely broken, slow to the point of real frustration, or missing something you truly need, that's a real need. If it still works fine and you just want that fresh feeling, that's novelty talking. And novelty fades in about 3 weeks, no matter what you buy. The second shift is stretching the upgrade cycle instead of eliminating it entirely. You don't need to keep a phone for 10 years to make a real difference. Simply moving from upgrading every single year to upgrading every 3 or 4 years can create a massive gap over time. The same gap we calculated between Sam and Alex earlier. The third shift, and this is the one that actually builds wealth, is redirecting that gap instead of just saving it. If you skip an unnecessary upgrade, don't just let that money quietly disappear into everyday spending. Move it somewhere it can actually grow. Even something as simple as consistently investing it. This turns a moment of restraint into decades of compounding growth. That's the real difference between people who feel like they're doing fine and people who actually build lasting financial freedom. It's rarely about earning more. It's about redirecting the small leaks most people never notice. And the fourth shift is simply learning to notice the pattern in the moment. The next time you feel that pull towards something new, whether it's a phone, a gadget, or anything else that mostly promises a feeling rather than a function, pause for just a moment and ask, am I upgrading my life right now, or am I just upgrading my mood for a few weeks? That single pause, repeated enough times across a lifetime, can be worth more than almost any single financial decision you'll ever make. Closing thought. Here's the uncomfortable truth hiding underneath all of this. Most people don't stay financially stuck because of one massive mistake. They stay stuck because of dozens of small, invisible ones, repeated so consistently that they stop even looking like decisions at all. They start looking like normal life. The new phone every year feels harmless because it's small, because everyone does it, and because it fades from memory the moment the next one shows up. But your future doesn't get built in big, dramatic moments. It gets built, or quietly dismantled, in exactly these small, repeated choices. So the next time you feel that familiar pull towards something new, ask yourself the real question underneath it. Are you upgrading your life? Or are you just paying, again, for a feeling that was never going to last past 3 weeks anyway? Because the people who end up genuinely free with money aren't the ones who never enjoy anything. They're the ones who learned early to tell the difference.